Good evening. It's Monday, July the 19th, 2021. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the invocation this evening will be given by the Reverend Mylan Bittenbender of LifeBridge Church. Good evening, Mylan. And welcome back.
Well, thank you. And can I move this? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to just start by saying thank you so much for Mayor, City Council, and City Manager, those of you who serve us so well. I've never taken a whole lot of interest in serving in politics or governmental leadership in the community, and I'm really grateful for those who do take an interest and are willing to serve and give their time. So thank you very much for the opportunity to even be a part of this this evening. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for our wonderful country, this great state of Michigan, and the beautiful city in which we live. We thank you for the wonderful people who live here and the diversity each person brings to this canvas. Lord, I pray you will make us a community characterized by love, compassion, integrity, and passion for what we do. Help us to raise our young people well, to care for the weak or the poor among us, develop noble leaders, and build strong families. I pray a blessing over our police force, our city government, our healthcare and educational systems, our businesses, and our communities of faith. Father, teach us to live and work together with the dignity and respect deserving of those created in your image and for your purposes. Now, Father, bless this group of men and women with wisdom as stewards of your authority. May they lead this city well with a heart of pure devotion and sincere service. We ask you to be present with us, making us strong and wise to carry out our calling, building a community worthy of respect. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mylan. Appreciate it. And now, if you're able, if you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Megan.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Chris Campbell.
Here.
Joe Reeser.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Steve Schlack.
Here.
Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here. That takes us to the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. Next, the consent agenda, items A through F.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Arnold.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Reeser.
Yes.
Schlack.
Yes.
Sleeper.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. All right. That takes us to old business. City Council will be asked to take the following actions regarding the proposed text amendments to sections 1404, 1405.3, and 1718 of the City of South Haven zoning ordinance regulating site plan review and environmental impact statements. So first, we need to hold a public hearing, so let's get that open and then we'll get some background.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is open. All right, we have Travis joining us. You're going to take over here and tell us what we're doing?
Yep. So this was introduced obviously at the last meeting. What this is here is sort of the culmination of the Planning Commission's work over the last few months to begin their process of taking on some of these items that were identified in the in the master plan as goals to be accomplished over the life of the plan. These first two were to identify both regulated and unregulated wetlands on site plans, and B, to incorporate by reference the environmental impact statement portion of the ordinance into the site plan review ordinance. It's really for ease of use, but it also better defines exactly what's expected of an applicant that will need to submit an environmental impact statement. Additionally, at the last meeting, just wanted to note that there was a concern raised whether or not the portion related to environmental impact statements when it referred to 85,000 square feet or greater in floor area, being the threshold for requirement, whether or not the language was clear, that it was a single structure that would force that requirement, or if it was a cumulative amount of structures that would then add up to that number. So in speaking with the city attorney, the staff has determined that the language as it reads right now is clear, but if the council would like to add further clarification, simply adding the word cumulative to that language could be done here tonight. So
Perfect. I think it was unclear, so I would say we should add the word at this point in time, but we can get into that later. So we are at a public hearing at this point in time. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask a question about this? Going once, going twice. Want to close that public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is closed. Next, and we can get into changing that word next, City Council will be asked to consider the adoption of the proposed text amendment to sections 1404, 1405.3, and 1718, with the addition of the word cumulative. I'm going to add that for, seeing as we've discussed it, so.
yeah, I would say, yeah, as it's been discussed, and
As
as
discussed.
it's described in the staff report as well. So.
That way we've got it out, and if there's, we can tear it apart in a second.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the text amendment changes to sections 1404, 1405.3, and 1718, adding the word cumulative as we've discussed it.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion. Pretty quiet. That's good.
Mayor, did you want me to read the change that inserts cumulatives
Sure.
for the council to hear?
Yep, read it.
So section 16 of 1718 would read, "Then the planning commission shall require an environmental impact statement for any residential, commercial, or industrial development as part of its review, and any site pertaining to a site that is 5 acres or larger or contains a structure or structures that are cumulatively 85,000 square feet or greater in floor area." See section 1718 environmental impact statement.
Yep. Good. Clear is better. All right, there's no discussion. We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. They are approved. Thanks, Travis. Appreciate it. That takes us to new business. City Council will be asked to consider the approval of Special Event 2021-21, which is the Michigan State University and Southwest SISMA Invasive Species Boat Wash to be held on July the 22nd, 2021 at the Black River Park from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m.
I'll make a motion to approve Special Event 2021-21, the MSU Boat Wash.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Kate, are you washing boats?
That's correct. So MSU, as part of Southwest by Southwest SISMA, would be coming down to set up a boat wash where it's a completely contained system where water would be added to a boat. Volunteers would wash it down, and then it would go into a collection system. Obviously, this would be, so nothing that was contained would be released out. This is an event to raise the awareness of water aquatic invasive species, things that attach to your boat and get transported to other bodies of water. Some things like milfoil and other things. So this is an event that we've partnered with MSU and the SISMAs, the Southwest by Southwest SISMA, in the past to raise awareness for our local boaters.
Cool. Very good. Thank you. Any public questions or comments on the boat wash?
Will this hinder any business at the launch ramps?
We don't plan to. What we have done is set these folks up in the very last row, so we typically don't have very many people parking in that last row, but we'll make every attempt not to disturb boaters, but we also tried to make sure that this was on a weekday and not a weekend.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion, we have a second to approve Special Event 2021-21. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. Next, City Council will be asked to consider a request to lower the speed limit on Baseline Road from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour to allow for golf cart operation. So how about, you want to go out of order here and hear some discussion before we throw out a recommendation? Maybe we can come back to a recommendation in a second. So background?
Yes, sir. So background, Baseline Road is a 35-mile-an-hour road. We have had a request, actually a renewed request, to look at whether or not this road may be changed to, or at least the speed limit lowered to 30 miles an hour to accommodate for golf cart operation. I did direct city staff, specifically the engineering department, to undertake an engineering and safety study to see whether or not, what are the current speeds on that road. This is required by law, by state statute, in order to look at changing the speed from the default speed. The default speed, first off, should be, just to educate the council, is set by the number of access points on a road within a half-mile segment. Here, the segment is within, I think, the 45 access points, which sets it at 35 miles an hour. So starting from that point, we have to then look at an engineering and safety study to determine what is the 85th percentile. The 85th percentile here, I think, came back between 40 and 41. I should say that there is a caveat that allows you to maybe look at the 50th percentile, and that's why we've seen the change here in the staff reports. The 50th percentile did not give us the relief that we were looking for. The 50th percentile came back at 33, 35, and 37 miles an hour. So that range of 50 to 85 percentile did not give the relief, according to the state law, to allow us to lower the speed limit. To talk more about how we went around about the safety study, I have Bill Hunter here, the Public Works Director, and where we took our studies from, and any kind of methodologies. Bill?
Thank you, Kate. One of the things we first look at is, according to the state statute, we got to look at certain things like Kate mentioned, the access points. So we had staff actually go through and take a look at that because, as Kate mentioned, it's very, in the state statute, they give you like ranges between 60 to 65 and 50 to 59. And at those ranges, you can, if you have that many access points, you can set it at 25, 30. And as Kate mentioned, we just don't have those access points there. The whole idea is the number more access points you have, the more liability you have of somebody coming out. And that's why the speeds are slow. We also take a look at your lane widths, because one of the things they mention is the road wide enough? That road was actually, through federal grants, through MDOT, we had that road redesigned, so it does meet current standards. There's two 12-foot lane widths. The total pavement width is actually 24.5 because you do have some shoulder. In addition to that, we have a dedicated bike lane that's actually off the road itself to the south side, and that was put in during that same project through grant funding. So you have not only that, now we have the bicyclists and the pedestrians off, which actually makes it to where there's less conflict points throughout. We also took a look at the design. We went into the original design, which the original design, when it went through federal standards, was designed to 35 miles an hour. So what we then do is we go by, well, let's measure and see what we have. Let's see what people are comfortably doing, because that's where the 85th percentile comes in at. You have, the reason why they've done a number of studies, and that's where they came up with the 85th percentile, and it's used nationwide. Basically, the 15% that are over that are going to be your worst drivers, and the 85th percentile should be naturally how fast you want to go. I think we've all driven before down a road, and I've done this before, what's the speed limit? But you kind of naturally get into it because your body, driving the years that we have, we tend to slow down in areas where there's more access points. We tend to speed up where there's less. So that being said, we put we have this radar box that we put out now. The speed study that was done prior to that in 2018, we actually used the speed trailer, which is great. That was a great tool to use. The reason why I didn't do it this time is because I do believe the speed trailer has a tendency, and it does work this way, where you see the speed and you go, I got to slow down. They do it a lot more during construction projects. People slow down when they see it. We put a black box out that nobody sees. We put it in actually 4 points along the roadway where actually the city has jurisdiction. The only jurisdiction we don't have on this road, and it's very rare actually, you see this, where you have one road authority and another road authority on the same road. We don't have any authority on this road from the school parking lot, or the school driveway to the east towards Blue Star. That's actually Allen County Road Commission, but majority of the road is ours. So we put that out in 4 spots, and we measure the speed in both lanes going through. And the box itself will actually give us a lot of data. It'll do the traffic counts of both lanes, and it gives us the 85th and the 50th percentile. So we took a look at that, and consistently, it compared to what we did even with the speed trailer back in 2018. So we're looking at exactly probably 3 speed studies that have been done in over 3 years. We're still coming up with 39, 40 miles per hour. Now, looking at those speeds, I was conflicted not to come to city council with a higher speed recommendation. So I actually kept with the same, what the road was designed as 35. So, and actually included in the report too is an accident report, so we took a look at the accidents. Is there something underlying we're not seeing? There's only been like 3 accidents, and you can see from the report 2 are animal-related, and 1 actually has to do with conditions of the road, and I anticipate during that time frame it had to be some snow event or something, and somebody just lost control.
Gotcha. And obviously, this request is being made because of the golf carts.
Yes, is my understanding,
That's,
yes.
that's why this is coming up, and so we understand the concern of the folks in that area. Do we have, I mean, based on this, recommendation is not to change the speed limit. Looking at legal opinion, we really can't change, I mean, am I,
Yes, I've run this by the city attorney, Nick Curcio, and I've given him the speed study with the 85th and the 50th percentile and showed him what we were looking up against. And quite honestly, when I gave him everything, that's why the change came, was that Attorney Curcio said that you don't really have any statutory authority because going below the 50th percentile does not change it from 35. And in fact, there seems to be evidence to change it to go from 35 to 40. Here, the recommendation is to do nothing, but that Attorney Curcio recommended that there is no statutory authority for the council to change the road from 35 to 30 based on what the speed study has established.
okay.
And I do want to just mention that we have looked at everything that we can to see if there's any other way to find relief for these folks. The road is set as it is from the state law, and that's the underlying speed limit. Secondarily, the 10-foot path there is a non-motorized trail that was put in with federal dollars. If that was to be converted over to a golf cart path, those pedestrians would have to go somewhere else because you don't typically want to put motorized path and pedestrians in the same place. And I do just want to say that we have been trying to look for something here, but the state statute and the authorities here are just not giving us any kind of wiggle room here.
Question real quick. If we had more access points, then the speed could be lowered, correct?
That's correct.
Now, we have Kentucky Avenue, which connects to, looks like Ash Circle, and then comes out over here. But we don't count Ravine Lane, or I'm not sure what that road is, and another road, because my map doesn't have it. Those aren't counted as access points then?
No, you have to use the half-road segment. So here we're looking at the speed limit on baseline roads, so you have to count the access points within a half mile of baseline road. So should there be more development on baseline road, that could potentially add to the number of access points, and lower the speed limit. Currently, you have a PUD that has a number of homes that are being built in there, but the established access points for those are already established. The entrances for those are already established and already counted.
How many
So all-
more?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So all the houses being built in that PUD won't count towards the count?
No, not unless they have any that actually face or front off of baseline that would have their own driveway.
curb cuts?
Right, curb cuts.
And obviously, you kind of pondered the concept of the existing path, but like you said, that's a pedestrian path. There's really no way to expand it because you've also got a bridge. There's some challenges down there. Every time I've driven it, I try to
Right,
get
it's a
creative.
it's a non-motorized path that was used, we use federal funds to expand. So I think there's an agreement on file, but to what degree, I'm not sure. But if we were to make that non-motorized path now become a motorized path, we would have to delineate where motorized vehicles could be and non-motorized, and that gets kind of, well, we would have to put something, I mean, similar to what you do right now. There's a curb and there's something to prevent motorized from running over pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's not really an optimal arrangement, is having motorized and non-motorized in the same path.
Gotcha. Well, we have some folks here that would probably like to come up and share your thoughts. So we would, if you'd like to come on up and one at a time, if you want to just come on up, state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes to give us your thoughts.
Scott Boyd, 507 Virginia Avenue, South Haven. Thank you very much for the explanation, because 85, 50, it was a little bit difficult. I think I'll start with the first thing about this is the first foray into this was I got a ticket for having a golf cart on baseline because I didn't feel safe taking my family down the hill, which was a private hill that I'd been directed by city that, hey, you can use that after a pancake breakfast. These are the kinds of things you do. Your two daughters on a Sunday had too many pancakes and sausage. I didn't feel like jiggling down the hill. And also a little safety because the girls were younger then. So that's how I kind of got interested in this. So I've been working on this for 3 years. I don't argue your speed study. There's a couple things about it. As anybody, when you do see one of those speed wagons or anything, we could all see it and we kind of text each other when we warned it. We didn't know there was a speed study going on. Actually, our neighborhood on Kentucky, we've had the speed trailer there for the last 3 weeks, and we requested it more because we do worry about safety of the residents in that general neighborhood area. So we did text each other when we did see the speed trailer at first, because we could see the top of it. We're like, hey, slow down, you want to get any tickets? We got a speed thing going on, it'll flash your speed. We didn't know what it was at first, so we all were kind of slow. The second thing I would say about the speed study is perhaps we need to do it at 2 times during the year. We have our summer traffic, and then we have it when school is in session, so maybe something like now, and then again we do it in October. And then the latest thing, and I'm very interested in the curb cuts, and it's a concern. You're right, the one development with the PUD currently, and not counting those homes, because there's 23 homes, new homes in that area since this last study, and there's another 20 that are scheduled to be completed by 6/20/21. All these people want to get into town. Yes, they can walk. Yes, they can ride their bike. Other citizens in this town can use cart or slow-moving vehicles to come downtown. I can come to your store. I can go to Bundy's on a Sunday morning and get my coffee and I have the sweets. The other thing that I would say is there are 2 brand-new curb cuts in the last 30 days on the Casco side of the street. So we haven't taken those into account, nor what will be being built over there. And Casco has just approved a slow-moving vehicle and golf cart access in their area is a non-issue. I've worked with, first understanding the rules about this with Chief Natalie, with Kate, City Manager Kate, and many of you have had discussions. I would just ask that if you have to go with this, because we do, I can see where there's some things that are tied up, but the most recent information is what I'm using. And I'm not arguing the last study. I'm arguing that it has changed drastically and is continuing to change and will continue to change. And let's get ahead of it. When has it been wrong to slow down? Especially in this town. Slow down. Enjoy the town. What do we say about all our visitors, right? Hey, you come here because we take it a little bit slow. We try to slow down, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the wildlife. Be safe, slow it down. I've never really understood what's wrong with going a little bit slower on a school zone. There's a school there. There's there's going to be another long-term nursing care center. You know, there's people that are looking at buying that center. We've got wildlife there. Unfortunately, we lost one of our deer the other day on Blue Star, and we lost one the other day on Baseline. And thank you very much for the reminder. So I would say, could we look at another study immediately? Could we take a look at, I'm not calling it flawed, I'm calling it that there's new issues out. I like to get to go and see my neighbor, that's one of your neighbors, Dr. Money, up by the Blue Stairs. Let all of our citizens enjoy this and slow down, enjoy the town. Thank you very much for your time. If you have to, by the rule, vote this down, I'm asking that you immediately turn right back around, conduct another study, and let's really take a hard look and not one that is, what is it going to be, right? We have planning commissions, and I understood, you know, doing some things and setting goals. Let's set a goal. What's wrong with slow it down, enjoy the town? I might have come up with a new marketing slogan there. I won't even charge the city for that one.
Good
Thank
work.
you very much.
Thanks, Scott, appreciate it. And we will continue to look at those curb cuts, and I guess I'd be curious, what's the threshold? At some point, I mean, not right now.
No, Kate did mention it. It's about 40. We're still, I mean, the curb cuts we keep mentioning are not on Baseline.
Right.
I mean, but I have to look at existing, that's what I have to look at. I can't look at potential. I do the study based on, unless there's some kind of something substantial that actually changes the use of that road right now, there's really nothing. I've honestly have never done this many speed studies on one road in my 27 years. I usually do one, and that'll go until something major changes. Right now, nothing major has happened in 3 years.
Bill, what about traffic calming measures like bump outs? Could we install something like that to bring the speeds down?
You could do traffic calming measures. There's ways of restriping it. You could actually slow the traffic down that way, pinching it off, making the lanes a little narrower. Bump outs you can do. You usually probably do those where you want to have crossing to limit actually the civilians from accessing one point to the other. So those are traffic calming measures you can do. Bump outs are going to require actually us looking at the drainage, because when I move the bump outs, I got to take a look at where that water's going, which would be adding catch basins, maybe doing some of the storm system. So, but
So
you
they're,
can.
they're an option, but they're a costly option. Sounds
They're a
like.
costly
Sounds
option.
like. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other, come on up.
So I'm Dustin Hall, 410 River Island. And thank you for the explanation as to how you guys set the speed limits there. That was enlightening. The question I had that I didn't get answered from that, though, is, and this is of a bigger concern to me even than the golf carts, because I have kids that are now of the age where they can walk to school. Why can't this just be a school zone? Why isn't this a school? Everywhere else I go, I see signs, school zone, speed limit 25. Why is this an exception?
Well, the school zone actually would only go during the school season. Plus, it would actually only be 1,000 feet from the school. Plus, it has to be initiated from the school itself, and they have to come up with a safe routes to school plan, which has to be initiated from them. So it can be done, but it has to be initiated from the school itself.
Okay.
Like I said, and it only helps you during the school season. After the school season, summertime,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nick Fazio, 509 Virginia Avenue. I guess my only question is, I understand creating speed bumps or painting stripes and checking the drainage and all that would be costly. To me, it seems very simple and not very expensive to just grab a socket, change the speed limit sign down so that those of us who have golf carts in this community. Do you live in the community? Okay, do you have a golf cart? If you live by me, would you want to use Baseline Road to get downtown?
Bill, can you
no,
turn-
sir, I use my golf cart at a campground on private property, sir.
Okay, but if you were my neighbor.
I wouldn't use it no, I wouldn't, sir.
Would you maybe be with us asking why it's
No,
such
sir.
an act of Congress to lower the speed
Well, I
limit
can,
5 miles
I
an
can
hour?
actually explain to you why, because you mentioned it's just as simple as that. There's actually science involved in it.
Okay.
And there's actually a lot of studies that show, like I mentioned earlier, about the 85th percentile.
It's a safe road, though. You
Now,
said
sir,
there's only
can I
3
finish, sir?
accidents.
Can I finish, sir?
Go ahead.
So in the 85th percentile, if I slow it down, that means people are going to be tending to tailgate, which actually be not safe for the golf carts.
It's Baseline Road. It's not Michigan Avenue in Chicago, is it? I'm just asking, is it
Well,
that big of a deal?
I have to do those around every road like that, sir. I have to do
Okay.
it universally.
So you're the
then-
guy, who do we talk to besides you, I guess, to maybe get this approved? Do we have to go to senators, congressmen? I mean, I'm just asking, is it that big of a deal to allow us to access town?
I have to
drive
go-
our
I have
golf
to
cart
go
there
actually
safely.
by the standards of, I have to go by these standards, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is
And those
there
are
anyone-
state standards. That's not,
Okay.
we don't,
So after him and after you guys, we have to take it to another level. Because there has to be
If-
somebody that has enough common sense to allow some people to access downtown safely. You said there's been only 3 accidents. Sounds like a very safe road to travel 20 miles an hour on. And if it's not that heavily traveled, then are we really interrupting a lot of traffic flow?
I mean, I guess, Kate, just to make it simple, if we just decided we're just going to change the speed limit, what are the ramifications?
Well, the ramifications are, well, first off, you don't have statutory authority to change it.
Correct.
First off.
Thank you.
Second off, should any other neighbor question your ability to do so, they could have you change it back because you don't have statutory authority. Thirdly, if there was any kind of an accident, an action could be brought against the city council for arbitrarily changing the speed limit without statutory authority and not meeting the standards that have been set by the state, which have been set by MDOT as well as the Michigan State Police as to why those speed limits are set. Unfortunately, I know it just seems like it's just a changing of the sign, but the law gives us the methods for which to do this, and unfortunately, the standards have not been met for us to allow this board to make that change.
And I understand that.
So we cannot physically do this.
Who can? Who has the statutory authority to change the speed limit?
Unfortunately, the statute says once it's been to the local authority and the standards have not been met at this point, nothing can be done. Now, a good point has been raised that should more access points be curb cuts on that road, added curb cuts, we can reevaluate and look at that. But right now, only 2 have been added, so really, we're not looking at a massive influx according to what the standards are to change that. So this would be something we would keep an eye on over time to see if we meet the standard.
But could the state, like I say, could a congressman, could a
Should-
senator make this happen?
Should the state decide to change their access points and allow for a different methodology, then yes. Should the state should the state legislature and the governor wish to change that, then yes, absolutely.
And I thank you for your information. I'm not that intelligent, so that's why I wanted to ask the question.
You're all good. Come on.
Because there's always somebody who can make it happen, so I was just curious who that was.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Hey, Bill, what's the current curb cut count? You said we've got to be a threshold of 40?
We're at 28 access points.
Okay.
2-0. Okay.
And it would need to be 40 by the calculations? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay. Any other public comments, questions? Any other comments of this board?
I'm just a little confused with when you're talking the breakouts in the road or the speed bumps or whatever to make traffic slow down. We can,
Those are traffic calming measures, which Jeff's, I mean, you usually use those, like what we did, Center. We use those actually not only to improve pedestrian access across, but actually to calm traffic down. That's what those bump outs are for.
so if we can put them out there to calm it down, is that in effect changing the speed limit?
We would have to actually do another speed study after that, see what it did. That's what we would have to do. After making those changes, then I would recommend it's been a geometry change within the segment of the road, and then take a look at it that way. So,
And a bump out's not a speed bump. It's where you bring the curbs out
Yep.
Right.
and it narrows the lane, and then it visually slows down the driver because they think they're entering a narrow, like a choke point.
Plus-
And then if
plus-
that brought the overall speeds down from the 39 that they're at now, if they'd come down to 30, well, then we could lower the speed limit.
And changing the paint lines too is another trick they do.
That's like we've done on the
AASHTO
bike lanes.
Yep, AASHTO actually recommends 12, this is a federally designed road, mind you. I mean, we did design it to federal standards, and that's where the 12-foot lanes come into effect. Now, I'm sure we could probably, the outside lane probably cheat it in, because that effect actually causes drivers to slow down because they see that. But a physical one is better, as Jeff pointed out, some kind of bump out would do it. But it's such a long stretch of road and it's so straight. That was some of the challenges of, I mean, if you look at a road, for example, there are some communities that tried this, actually tried to zig the road to make it actually to slow it down. A few communities have tried that, then they went back to straight roads, because then you might have slowed it down, but then you get the other people that come in saying, why did you do it? I think it's similar to speed bumps. There's a lot of people are advocates of speed bumps. But you have the other half that hate speed bumps with a passion, especially if you have a speed bump right in front of your house. Imagine the
Oh, the sound.
we took a bunch out of one community. We had a bunch in and we took a bunch out because we just kept moving it. One neighborhood, I needed to move down to his because he had it for a year and it just was moving it around. So the same measures, but the one that's most common, as Jeff pointed out, is the bump outs. Those it doesn't affect it. It creates and slows the traffic.
But that involves pouring curbs and,
Yeah,
you know.
I understand. I'm just
yeah.
trying to get to the theory behind it, and so that everybody understands it
Mm-hmm.
and understands why. So if we slow the traffic down, then we can change the speed limit to a lower speed?
I would have to actually do another survey to see what it did to it. That's what I would have to do.
So if we do a traffic study and the traffic actually slows down, then it brings them percentiles down so that we can lower the speed limit at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to put a billboard up there that tells everybody to slow down for a while, and then you do a traffic study?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt if the neighbors put those kids playing things
Oh, yeah.
out.
I'm
exactly.
trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to do this, because I too don't want to spend money on bump outs
No,
and things
it's-
of that nature to slow the traffic down.
Yeah.
But if we were to slow the traffic down, and maybe Mr. Boyd had a point of doing the study in October when over probably 400 slip owners aren't at the end of that street, and summer rental, weekly rentals aren't there, maybe you won't have as much traffic going as fast. So maybe a traffic study in October or November does make sense. Because I know there's at least 300 slips down that road. So you have a car or two, 1.5, I guess the rule is, for each slip. So that's a lot of traffic during the summertime, and a lot of people in a hurry to get to their boats. And maybe they drive slower when they're leaving and going home, I don't know.
Well, the other consideration is that is one of the roads that people take when the bridge is up and there's a long line to get out across the bridge. They use that to get from the north side to the south side.
And then in the fall, the parents are in a hurry to get their kids back and forth between school. So I'm good with redoing the traffic study, and if we've got traffic calming suggestions that could be tried, because clearly we'd like to come up with a solution. That's the goal here.
What about just parking a police car on that road? Then do the study.
Oh,
There you go.
and Kate, there's no such thing as a temporary traffic order for 90 days or something that's possible that we could use?
No, I did run that by the city attorney. He said, again, you're running up against your statutory authority to change the speed limit. He said you don't really do that. Secondarily, I would suggest that doesn't cover the entire golf cart season, so you would really only, if it was allowed, you wouldn't be covering the entire golf cart season anyway. But he said you don't have statutory authority to go below the percentiles as we've talked about today.
Thank you.
I think we've beat it up. We'll keep looking at alternatives, and if there's no other, what you got?
Any other people want to comment?
I'd asked a second ago, but
I thought I seen a hand come up. But
someone else have a comment they wanted to make? Otherwise, we're going to move onward. Got nothing. So, all right. We'll continue to keep it under advisement. All right, let's go ahead and move on. And again, thanks all for coming, for your suggestions. We'll keep on it. City Council will be asked to consider the following actions regarding a request to renew the narcotics millage. First is the consider approval of Resolution 2021-18, which is a resolution authorizing the November 2nd, 2021 ballot proposal for the Controlled Substance Enforcement Millage Renewal. And I guess we can take this all as one. Then consider the approval of an agreement to share captured tax value with the Downtown Development Authority for 3 years. Kate?
Yes, sir. So this would be a renewal of the narcotics millage. This runs every 5 years. The last renewal was in 2016. So this comes up on our 5 years at the end of this year. So city staff have put together a bond proposal that is in part of your resolution, as well as the documentation with the DDA to share in tax capture. We have looked at what was the taxable amount, as well as how much that has rolled back over the successive years. And we have looked at what are the constraints of the program. The entirety of the narcotics millage is supposed to fund all of the narcotics efforts. So what we do typically is we have an officer that's going to be placed in a regional or county team for drug interdiction and drug task enforcement. And so we're trying to make sure that that is entirely funded by this millage and not to be supplemented by any general fund dollars to any extent possible. That's why we've asked for not only a renewal of the narcotics millage, as well as an increase up to 0.7 mils, which is the limit that we can ask by charter. And this is to, as I said, sustain any kind of 2 officers. We like to have 2 officers and a portion of canine costs to deter drug activity. The amount that would be collected by the 0.7 mils bond amount would be $280,000 in the first year, which is about a $14,000 increase from the 2016 renewal. So we're not seeing too much. Also, how much would be the renewal? If there is a $300,000 house, they would see, hold on a second, I've got that form right here. Currently, if you have a $300,000 house, currently you pay about $198 towards the narcotics fund. With the renewal, with the increased amount, you would be paying $210. So this will be a nominal amount to cover all of the costs that we're seeing with the narcotics fund. A $250,000 house currently pays $165. With the proposal, they would be paying $175.
Okay, very good. I guess we need a motion in a second before we get any more discussion going. And I'll take them on both.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-18, a resolution authorizing the November 2nd, 2021 ballot proposal.
Second.
All right, we'll take that one first. We just heard Kate's explanation. Any public questions or comments on that renewal? All right, seeing none. Council comments? My only comment is I like Kathleen Proposal A for a reason, and I'll say that publicly because it's designed to keep expenditures in line with inflation. So I would be curious to hear from the other taxing entities. Are they also asking for a renewal when they're renewing? I'd just be something to look at, just to see how how much we're funding of this millage, and are we the only entity that's seeing inflation, raises above and beyond inflation? I will approve, but I just always get worried when we're raising faster than inflation. So, any other comments? We've got a motion, we've got a second to approve Resolution 2021-18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. And next, the approval of an agreement to share captured tax value with the Downtown Development Authority for 3 years.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement to share captured tax value with the Downtown Development Authority for 3 years.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Again, any public comments on this one? Seeing none, council? Nothing. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Next, we will hear an update on our economic development projects. Griffin, good evening. Share the good news.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity, everyone. Am I on? Oh, there we go.
On.
Appreciate the opportunity. Going to talk with you for a few minutes this evening about many of the city's ongoing economic development projects. As you all know, economic development efforts has been a top priority of City Council for many years. So with Kate's leadership, staff's been dedicating significant time towards advancing many of these both directly related and indirectly related projects to benefit the economic development environment here locally. So to discuss a few specific projects that staff has been working on over the past several months, first off is a business resource sheet that a copy is included in your packet. This document was developed to really serve as a one-stop shop for the various resources, incentives, initiatives, programs, so on and so forth, that the city either directly provides or indirectly provides through its relationships and networks with other partner entities. This resource has both been distributed to those reaching out to the city about economic development efforts, as well as it's available publicly on the website. The goal is this will be a continuously updated document and hopefully continues to serve as a resource moving forward. The city has also been compiling a priority sites list. So in a community like South Haven that has seen significant development and redevelopment over 150 years of existence, you really see sites that need special attention. Specific ones that continue to be highlighted in the community recently are both the Overton site, the former Hales department store site, and these are just two of the many priority sites that staff has identified that are either under the city's direct control or currently on the market for development or sale. Staff gets contacted regularly by individuals seeking information about these sites, so we have worked to compile not only a map, but a tracking system in line with the 2020 Economic Development Strategic Plan to be able to start sharing information on these sites to help prioritize their redevelopment locally. City staff has also re-engaged South Haven Charter Township in the establishment of the M140 corridor. We've seen significant success over the last few years with the commercial rehab district in the downtown area. One of the next steps is looking at expanding that district along the M140 corridor to Blue Star Highway to really incentivize the reinvestment in that area. The first step to do that would be a 425 agreement with the township to allow the city to, for all intents and purposes, take control of that property, and with the city staff's time and effort, we can implement a commercial rehab district there and hopefully incentivize folks to reinvest in that corridor. Moving on to commercial rehab districts, as you all know, in 2018, the city of South Haven established its first commercial rehab district. We have seen several different applications at this point move through, most recently the Heart Insurance that was approved at the last city council meeting. So this is another tool in the city's tool belt that we can use to assist folks who are looking to reinvest in commercial property. Moving on to 5, the LMC property acquisition. We'll talk a little bit more about this one later in this meeting, but as you all know, the city recently acquired over 6.8 acres of property from Lake Michigan College, and staff is going to be seeking proposals for redevelopment opportunities for that site. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the meeting. Moving on to 6, business retention visits, expansion assistance, and ombudsman services. City staff, along with Mayor Smith, regularly visit our local businesses to make sure that we're maintaining relationships, building one-on-one connections, as well as making sure that folks know that city staff and city leadership is available to assist businesses not only looking to relocate to South Haven, but those that are already here who may be looking at expanding. Throughout these visits, we not only track the feedback that we gather, but we also look to implement change and follow up with those folks with either information or additional resources that they may be looking for. But we've also learned through these these visits with businesses recently that there are several local employers who are exploring expansion opportunities here locally, which I think is a really good sign for the environment that City Council has created for the business community. Moving on to 7, city staff is continuing to work towards improving high-speed internet access in the South Haven area. We're continuing to work with an organization called Merit, which is a consortium of Michigan's local public universities, and are preparing an estimate or a quote for both data collection and a feasibility study of what it would take to expand broadband access, not only here in the city proper, but also in our neighboring townships. We're hoping to have that proposal here in the next couple months and be able to contemplate moving that forward here quickly. Number 8, we'll talk a little bit more about this one later in the meeting as well, but Market Van Buren is Van Buren County's economic development organization. It's a relatively new entity compared to many of the other economic development corporations in the state. But with that, they are very energetic and looking to expand and promoting many both economic and community development efforts throughout the county. Staff has been building relationships with them over time. I know Mayor Smith's one of their board members, and we will be looking to advance a 1-year agreement with them for supplementary economic development services later in the meeting. On to 9, workforce housing, specifically the Overton site redevelopment. On the site visits that we discussed earlier, one of the pieces of feedback we get regularly is that there are not enough affordable places for the year-round workforce to live in the city of South Haven. I know you all have heard that, and it's been something that's been a city priority for about as many years that economic development's been a priority. And the city is continuing to pursue various redevelopment opportunities locally for alternative housing options. So, and when I say alternative, the types of housing that aren't currently being built here in South Haven. We're quite fortunate compared to a lot of other communities in the state that we do regularly see single-family home development, but unfortunately we're also seeing that the homes that are being built are not at a price point that is attainable for most of the workforce here locally. So, as you all know, one of the steps that city's been taking is working with the Habitat Company to develop a concept plan for the redevelopment of the Overton site. So my encouragement for everyone listening today and for the council is just to remember that this is also directly tied to the city's economic development efforts.
Can I ask a question, or do we have to wait to the end?
Go ahead. It's whatever you prefer.
So you said we're very lucky that we have a lot of new construction and new homes going in. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
So my simple question is, have we done a study of the new housing that we have? What percentage of new homes are actually for year-round residents, and how many are investment properties, namely short-term rentals or seasonal homes? Because ultimately, bottom line is our population, you can tell me the exact year, but 15 or 20 years ago, we had over 6,000 year-round residents. We're down to 4,300. So here we have more homes being built, but our total population is dropping. We got to figure out, where are the year-round residents going? Do we have more? Do we have less? It seems like less. And what can we do about it? And it seems to me that we're at a perfect situation right now. Post-pandemic, people are moving out of big cities and looking for small towns. More than ever. They can live almost anywhere they want because they work out of their homes. This is exactly the type of community, as I keep reading, People want small towns, walkable towns, safe towns. They want diversity in their town, all the things that we strive for, and yet our population keeps going down. And I am a senior, but the age profile of our community keeps getting older, so we have less young people living here. So we have less blue-collar workers, less available teachers. We seem to be going, in spite of new homes, in some metrics, the wrong way. Or do I have this wrong?
I guess what I can say to that first off is when I say we're fortunate to be seeing significant new home growth, so Kate and I regularly have conversations with other city managers around the state, not only them asking us about projects that we have going on in South Haven, but we will also ask other communities what they have going on in their towns. And we hear regularly from communities that will go years without a single dwelling unit being constructed. So when I say we're fortunate, is that's not the reality here in South Haven. I mean, even when the economy's good and when the economy's bad, South Haven is still traditionally seen significant investment in housing. I think what you're hitting on is we're seeing significant investment in certain types of housing that serve certain segments of the population. Is that good? Is that bad? That's for you all as elected officials to determine. But I hear what you're saying. I think.
But we need to know the facts. And what I don't know, and maybe somebody up here is smarter than me, but I don't know when you say we have all this new housing, new properties, what percentage is being purchased by year-round residents? Because let's just play devil's advocate. If 100 new homes are built and 99 of them are for investment properties, then we're not getting anywhere. We're not helping the community. And ultimately, we now have less year-round residents by the tune of 50%, from 6,000 something, am I right, Kate? This is what you told me recently, down to 4,300. There's something broken here. We have less people. Now, the mayor made a point to me a couple days ago, and I called him, and he said, and this could be way wrong, but I'm going to tell you what we talked about, is part of the problem with all the restaurants, that we have this giant influx in the summer, and then in the winter, they all leave because it's becoming more and more of a resort town, and then you take our nice restaurants that do a bang-up business right now, and they can't survive in the winter months. So then it goes back to the question I initially asked. If we keep building homes and selling properties, but they're all investment properties and no one's living here year-round, where is this town headed? And that's what we need to know, because I don't know the facts. And Griffin, what I'm asking you is get us some facts. Tell us of the new properties, how much of it is for year-round residents? Because I talked to someone on the Planning Commission, and he shocked me what a low percentage that is for year-round dwellings.
Yeah, we don't have that data today because we were preparing for economic development. This was just kind of a quick rundown of what we were doing for workforce housing. We can prepare that for a later date, but I just don't have that today.
Yeah, and in the end, you
But
could look at, homestead or non-homestead, we could look at that. I mean, and, at the end of the day, part of the point is new home starts are up, which is good. Supply and demand sooner or later should hopefully, have a bearing here. I mean, we're building homes, which is positive, and I would agree. The question is ultimately, how do we attract people to be here year-round? That's another discussion for how do you get families here, how do you, things to do, that'll come.
Well, and that's part of our economic development priorities. That was something that was flagged, that was something that was part of your adopted 2020 economic development plan, was how to make our town a year-round economy versus so seasonally dependent.
Yeah.
So it is something we're cognizant of, something we are trying to work on. So we'll get you that information. We don't have it today.
Got it. Very good. All right.
Thank you. Yep, great questions. Moving on to 10, Central Business District development, which is another priority that was identified by City Council for this year, and specifically the Hale site redevelopment. City staff is working with a local developer and continuing to explore opportunities for redeveloping that site. As you all know, there were a number of stakeholder meetings in a public open house hosted earlier in the year. Staff was fortunate to receive funding from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and their redevelopment service team to bring some consultants in to help facilitate that process. So we are expecting to see some movement here in the next few months. Moving on to number 11, the reason we were able to obtain that funding from the MEDC's redevelopment services team is because in 2020 the city was redevelopment ready certified by the MEDC. That certification, in short, what it means is the city was able to accomplish many of the best practices that were set out by the state. And this sets us apart from many others in the state of Michigan when it comes to communities, particularly of our size. And this is not the end of that process. Now that we are certified, we have annual recertification steps that need to be accomplished. So this is another task that the economic development team is regularly working on. And then lastly to 12, just a few other projects that are noteworthy in the economic development realm. One is with Palisades closing in 2022, city staff is engaging with representatives not only of Energy but of Van Buren County regarding this process to make sure that the community has a seat at the table when it comes to not only the decommissioning but what comes next for that site. And then lastly, city staff is actively marketing the former Michigan State Police outpost located on LaGrange Street. That's currently city-owned property, and we are looking for opportunities to offload that property for it to get back onto the tax rolls. So those are our kind of 12 major economic development projects that we are pursuing currently. I am happy to answer any other questions that I can.
I'll just say good job. As a person that gets to go out on those site visits, our employers are very bullish on this community. They're happy with service. We're responsive. So I think things are moving in a positive direction. The business resource sheet, which is in there, that started as I was trying to keep track of what I was aware of from just my visits, and that's expanded beautifully. I appreciate staff's input on that, so that's been really nice. The employers like to have at their fingertips ways they can grow their business, so we will continue to be out there to our residents that are, I think there's a feeling like, gee, we're just a tourist town. Well, I'll tell you, we have a lot of really fantastic businesses with a lot of real good employees here in this town. And it will continue to be our priority to make sure those businesses grow, expand. We're trying to bring more jobs in. That is absolutely, it's as our top priority. It has for years. So we will continue to work on that.
And Mayor, if I can, a lot of these projects are really what sets South Haven apart from an economic development standpoint. It may seem for our organization that these types of things are standard or, well, of course we're doing those, but I can tell you from not only personal experience with other communities around the state, but also the conversations that Kate and I have with managers, these not only individual ones of these projects and these initiatives, but the number of economic development focused initiatives that the city is continuously advancing really does set us apart. And I think that largely plays into, like what you said, that our not only current businesses are bullish on this community, but why we have interest from other communities at looking at South Haven as a full-time home.
And we've heard the concerns of our employers with, the lack of the ability to find qualified workers. We have a partner in LMC. Would love to, continue to work with them to see more activity with training go on. We did send a letter to the governor stating our concerns about the continued unemployment benefits and what that's doing to the workforce. So, we know there's a lot of variables out there right now, and we have, businesses, restaurants closed different days of the week right now, and we've heard the concerns, and we're doing our best to try to help with that. So on that, I'll just say good job. No other questions? We'll go on. Very good, thank you. Next. How about if we get a couple items down, then we'll take a break? Does that sound fair to the group? Unless anyone needs one eminently? Good, all right. Sorry. City Council will be asked to consider a request to create a new commercial rehab district encompassing the property located at 89 North Shore Drive. And why don't we just, if someone wants to make a motion, then we can get into some discussion.
Sorry, I clicked away.
I'll make a motion to request creation of a new commercial rehab district encompassing the property located at 89 North Shore Drive.
Second?
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. We should clarify 89 North Shore Drive is also famously known as Bundy's Bakery, so I'll make sure what we're talking about here. Kate, share, and then we have the owners are here too, so.
We sure are, and in fact, I'm going to hand this over to Griffin, who's been doing the heavy lifting on this one, as well as the owners of Bundy's Bakery. So Griffin?
Thank you. And moving right on from some of our economic development efforts, Bundy's Bakery, and they are here today, have approached the city several months ago with interest in expanding and reinvesting in their property at 89 North Shore Drive. They are interested in taking advantage of some of the incentives that the city makes available to other businesses, one of those being a commercial rehab district. Unfortunately, their property is not currently in the city's established commercial rehab district that was established in 2018 following a very similar request that you'll see in your packet today from South Haven Center LLC or the 335 Center Street redevelopment downtown. So so Bundy's Bakery is here today requesting that you all consider the creation of a new district. Should you all want to move forward with that, the process that staff would recommend would be a motion of support of creating a new district, and then we need to have a conversation about what the boundary of that district would look like. A proposed boundary was established and is included in your packet that you all can consider. However, at this point, that's also a good opportunity for you all to provide some feedback if you think that's an appropriate boundary. Unfortunately, state statute does not give a local municipality the option to simply amend the boundary of an existing district, which is why the creation of a new district is being brought forward for your consideration.
And this ultimately needs to then go on to the county.
Correct. So looking a little longer term, assuming City Council considers creating a new district, we would need to establish that new district by setting those boundaries. Public hearing would be heard at a future meeting for that. Resolution would be adopted. That would then be sent on to the county. Once that district is formally created, if you will, the application, very similarly to what was just approved for Heart Insurance, would be brought before you all for introduction, a public hearing, and eventual consideration for approval.
And yes, the County Board of Commissioners does get to weigh in on whether or not the new district is allowed to be created.
Right, very good.
How does this affect the current district?
It doesn't.
Okay.
All right, well, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we want to hear from the property owners?
Sure, they are here, and I'm sure they could tell you a little bit about what they're
trying
looking
to
at
do,
doing
which
for the
would be good.
property.
We can-
Absolutely.
Let's do that. We'll get another public comments and.
Hi, I'm Jim Sankowski. I represent my wife, Rachel, and Bundy's Bakery. It's one of the last neighborhood businesses on the north side in South Haven. And we want to just rehab the whole lot that we own. I mean, it's years, we need to repair a number of things and create the environment to where it will extend itself for decades into the future. And South Haven will have a north side neighborhood business there for, the untold future, for at least my lifetime, however long that is. And we really appreciate your consideration and Kate's and Griffin's effort in this. We hope to, I don't know, rehab the downstairs where we bake and store bakery supplies, and then go up 1 or 2 stories, whatever is allowed, and possibly end up living there eventually.
Very good.
And maybe at that time I'll have to have an elevator for myself. But I think Bundy still lives there, so, that wouldn't be a problem for him. But if there are any questions, I can.
Fair enough. Any questions? Just excited you're making the investment, so thank you for that. You're an establishment over there, and like you said, we need something on the north side, so that's exciting.
Okay.
George wants to be able to get across the street quick for snacks, so that's important.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you again for coming. Any public questions? Got no public questions. Seeing none, council questions on boundary as recommended? It's pretty, look reasonable. I mean,
The reason for recommending the boundary as it is at this point, Bundy's Bakery is the only eligible establishment on the north side that is not currently in a commercial rehab district. So we created the simplest boundary that encompassed Bundy's Bakery that assuming it moves forward would make them eligible for this tax abatement.
exactly. I said it looked pretty straight ahead, so.
And to clarify, because it is one of the pieces of, it was one of the concerns that was brought to staff, creating a commercial rehab district does not make the other properties in that district that are not currently commercial districts suddenly commercial properties. This abatement only applies to commercial properties in the established district, and in the proposed district, Bundy's Bakery is the only existing commercial establishment.
Okay, sounds good. So we got a motion, we got a second. The district was outlined in the packet, so
I guess I just had one other idea. You were talking about how once a district is established, you can't really change it. You have to have a new one. Was there any talk about maybe extending it to Dykeman to cover like the North Side Memories property and the?
That's a great thought. Those businesses are already included in the established commercial rehab district.
All right.
That is part of why this request, I believe, was brought forward. Is they're the only existing commercial establishment in that area that is not included in an existing district.
All right. Thank you.
Question. We've got a motion, we've got a second. Going with boundaries recommended by staff. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you very much. All right, next. Let's go. City Council will be asked to consider a one-year agreement with Market Van Buren for supplementary economic development services in the amount of $11,228.39.
I'll make a motion to approve a one-year agreement with Market Van Buren for supplementary economic development services in the amount of $11,228.39.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Griffin's up still.
Yes, he
I
is.
am. Hopefully you aren't getting sick of me yet.
You're
But
good.
to advance City Council's priority of economic development efforts, city staff is recommending a one-year contribution to Market Van Buren for supplementary economic development services. As we spoke a little bit about earlier in the meeting, they are the city's economic development corporation. So they are working to promote and attract investment countywide. Staff is making this recommendation for the purpose of being a good neighbor and really consolidating our efforts, making sure that we are coordinating not only locally and prioritizing South Haven, but also recognizing that economic development tends to be a regional sport, and what is good for our general area tends to be good for us locally. So that is why we're recommending a one-year trial agreement, if you will, to make this contribution, and then in a year, City Council and staff can evaluate if there was value for the city by making this contribution.
Good explanation. And Market Van Buren ultimately was somewhat birthed from Connexus. I don't know if that's the correct, but I mean, so Connexus still is doing some economic development work for the county. This is kind of
Yes.
an expansion of that. So it's very it's
So it's best to just understand that Market Van Buren is a subsidiary of Connexus, even though it's it's a hybrid of government and private working together. It's still organized under Connexus, and Connexus also still has Michigan Talent or Michigan Works, so they do their job placement and their programming through there. So this is one more program under Connexus.
And specifically, you may ask, what services are Market Van Buren going to be able to provide that the city's not already doing? I would say the two I'd like to highlight, and there are a few that are highlighted in the memorandum of understanding, but one of them is grant work. Market Van Buren's team has significant experience not only finding grants, but also writing, submitting, and receiving grants when it comes specifically to economic development projects, and that's something that will definitely be able to support the efforts that the city is currently pursuing, as well as some of the connections that they have both regionally and statewide when it comes to connecting our businesses to resources. I think those are important ones to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The business resource, the connections is so important in this day and age, so I think it'll be a beneficial agreement at this point in time. We've got a motion, we've got a second. Are there any public questions on this one? All's quiet. Council.
I guess, is there going to be like, as part of the new agreement, is there going to be like periodic meetings or something that doesn't happen now that will happen under this new agreement?
There will be. So currently, Mayor Smith is a member of Market Van Buren's board of directors. Part of moving forward with this is we're going to be looking at getting a city staff member to take over in that role to give us a little bit more direct connection with Market Van Buren. We will also be responsible for managing that relationship and making sure that there's value in this contribution.
But yeah, that's part of what my hope is, that what are some of the metrics? Because we have our fingers in a lot of the businesses, so we're aware of expansion plans and whatnot. So the question is really going to be, what added value is there? What connections do they have that's further helping expand businesses? So,
and that's a really fair question and concern, and I think that's partially why we wanted to pair this with an economic development update. So in a year, hopefully city council and staff can look back and go, okay, these were all the projects that city staff and our team was already advancing without this supplementary assistance. So now that we've gone a year, we've made this contribution, essentially in layman's terms, what did we get for our contribution? And then at that point, city staff and council will be able to evaluate is continuing this relationship longer term of value to the community or not. So I think looking at this almost as a trial run, or looking at it as okay, this is a challenge to Market Van Buren. We're interested in this. We want to work together. We're going to make this contribution. Now let's have them earn it.
Right. See if there's any value added after 1 year for this contribution.
And if not, it's easy to walk away. It's a 1 year clean break agreement at the end, or at the end of that year, city council could also look at moving forward with a longer term relationship if the value's there.
Yeah. Let's hope they help us grow. So here's the idea.
And one thing I forgot to add, Mayor, is that because you're on the board of directors,
I
you
should
do have to
abstain.
recuse yourself from
Right.
voting tonight.
I will so do that. So shall we roll call it as a result, or have I gave it?
If you wish, we can roll call that.
Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead. We have a motion and a second. Let's roll call it.
Campbell,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
And I will
And
recuse
Smith.
myself. So it passes. Thank you all. All right. Let's go ahead. Next, City Council will be asked to authorize the publication and release of the proposed request for development proposals regarding the property recently acquired from Lake Michigan College.
I'll make a motion to authorize the publication and release of the proposed RFP regarding the property recently acquired from Lake Michigan College.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Griffin still up?
Yes, lastly on our slate of economic
Nice.
development projects
Oh, good.
for the evening.
Like it.
As you all know, in the last couple months, the city recently acquired just over 6.8 acres of land from Lake Michigan College in the I-196 Business Park. Due to its location and really unique development opportunity in the community, staff is suggesting seeking proposals from businesses either interested in expanding or relocating to that city-owned parcel. Since the vision for this site is still emerging and relatively flexible, staff intends to review and prioritize development according to job creation potential, market demand, and the highest economic and financial benefit to the city. At this point, once the proposal is released, or excuse me, once the publication is released, the city will review proposals and bring a recommendation before City Council for next steps at that time. I think for digestion, if you will, this is a very similar process that was advanced for the Overton site for their redevelopment, where an RFP was developed. Proposals were then sought from the broader development community. They were then reviewed, and a recommendation was made back to City Council for a due diligence agreement or a similar form of agreement to decide either whether or not to move forward with that specific proposal. So it gives us a lot of control and flexibility moving forward of what occurs on that site, but at the same time, it continues to be very proactive in making the business community know that the opportunity exists here.
Good explanation.
So can the city sell it to a private business for commercial use and/or break it up and give it to a developer for homes? Do we have that flexibility, or is it simply commercial?
So
It's strictly commercial and/or industrial because of the restricted covenants for that park.
Okay.
What I will add, though, is selling the property or giving it away, in your words. Those are both options when it comes to next steps. I think one of the recommendations staff will be making to City Council when it comes to reviewing these proposals is what type of additional incentives may a business be seeking, and starting to weigh the pros and cons when it comes to determining an eventual purchase sale price.
And in the end, the goal with this was we worked with LMC, and I want to thank their board, their president, for being willing to really relinquish this property, because we approached them and said, look, this property is sitting idle. We have the need for additional manufacturing sites. Will you turn some of this back over to us? And they did. And so now the goal is, let's put it out there. Bring us some jobs. I mean, we're serious about jobs. Let's bring us a proposal. So
And Mr. Mayor, prior to this, we were not getting tax dollars from the community college anyhow, were we?
No, that's
Right,
that land.
So we're not losing anything, and there's a chance we could have economic development, private businesses out there.
Yeah.
And we're in a position to leveraging it, whatever we think is best for the community.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Bring us jobs. So I will be in favor. So good explanation. Any public questions or comments on this one? On what LMC is?
One question.
Oh, you can come on up, just state your name and address, and good evening.
Kate Engelbrecht, 125 Elkenberg Street. I didn't understand Kate's answer to Mr. Reeser's question about whether it could be used as part industrial and part residential, or split it up for a couple of different uses.
I'll restate. The I-196 Business Park was created to be a commercial and/or industrial park. Therefore, there are restrictive covenants that restrict the uses, and they're listed out. Residential use, first off, cannot be included in an I-1 zoning district, but more importantly, it's also listed, restrictive covenant on those properties do not allow for housing. So they're just limited to commercial, industrial, manufacturing, so basically for a manufacturing park and
So
industrial
you
park.
can't rezone it
Once the city owns it?
Well, it could be rezoned, but you also have a restrictive covenant that prevents it from being rezoned from being used anything other than what it was purchased for, which I think it was purchased with certain dollars. That's why the restrictive covenant is on those parcels, so that it would stay as an industrial park and as for industrial uses as well as commercial uses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Beck, 879 Monroe Boulevard. I just had a question, Kate. Could you explain in English what a restrictive covenant is?
Sure, a restrictive covenant is a restrictive covenant is a legal mechanism by which what you do is you restrict or refine how the property may or may not be used. So it's actually been something that, this is a legal document that's been recorded. So so all users who have purchased property are on the same, or have been notified or on notice about what are the restrictive covenants deed. So it's as part of their deed, so they are restricted as to uses on the property, as well as they are also put on notice as to what those properties may not be used for.
So is that like from who you bought it from?
Yes.
So they created that. So once the
That's
city
correct.
owned it, it cannot in any way be
My under-
rezoned or changed?
My understanding is that when the I-196 Business Park was created, it was purchased either from one owner, and then a restrictive covenant was placed on the entire park. That way, all of the users, the end users, the end purchasers who became, who built their businesses there, all had the reassurances that this would become an industrial park, not a smattering of commercial or housing or whatnot. This was to be an industrial park for commercial and manufacturing and industrial uses. That's why the restrictive covenants were filed, as well as, and filed with the Register of Deeds, as well as part of their chain of title.
That makes sense. I have one more question. Do they buy the property, or are they, like the businesses that are there, do they buy it, or are they leasing it, or the people that received the covenant?
They
They're the
purchased the
purchasers.
property. They own it, yep.
Great, thank
Res-
you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Nothing. We have a motion, we have a second to authorize the publication of the RFP. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Publish away. Let's get through one more and then we'll take a break. All right. City Council will be asked to consider the following actions regarding a rezoning application for 879 St. Joseph Street. First, consider an introduction to the proposed rezoning of the properties, parcel number 80-53-076-00400, 80-53-076-00300, 80-53-076-00200. That's pretty good. My eyes are about shot 12 hours later looking at computer screens. So we'll start with that one. Motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to introduce the proposed rezoning of the properties, the numbers listed, otherwise known as 879 St. Joseph Street.
Second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion. We have a second. Travis, good evening.
So this item that's before you right now was discussed by the Planning Commission at the July 8th meeting. And I realized as I was looking through this and preparing my comments for tonight that I did not include those minutes in here. So I apologize for that. And those will be in the packet for your next meeting when you consider this at a public hearing. What this is a request from the property owner who owns these three parcels to rezone these from I-1 light industrial to R1A, single-family residential. The owner has expressed interest in having these three parcels developed as single-family homes. In order to do that, they cannot be in the I-1 light industrial district. The parcels themselves are quite small, too small for an industrial use, and they fit in terms of dimensionally perfectly into the R1A district. Additionally, the master plan identified these three parcels as part of what it described as its attached urban housing proposed zoning district. That zoning district currently does not exist in our zoning, and so this is a use that's very similar to what the master plan contemplated. Again, it's not multifamily, it's not duplexes, triplexes, or small multiplexes as the master plan contemplated, but in the absence of that district, again, this does kind of run with what the master plan had envisioned. And additionally, in looking at the master plan, the interpretation of staff is that it shouldn't be taken to exclude these properties from requesting a rezoning that would be consistent with the neighborhood that they're in. So,
Okay, very good. Any public questions or comments on this one? Again, this is just an introduction tonight. Seeing none, council questions? Nothing. We've got a motion and a second to introduce the proposed zoning as described. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. And next, we just need to schedule a public hearing on the rezoning proposal to be held on August the 2nd, 2021 at the City Council regular meeting.
Make a motion to hold a public hearing on August 2nd, 2021 at the City Council regular meeting.
I'll second.
Motion is second to hold that public hearing. Any public questions on that one? Nothing? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. How about a motion to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll continue on with the last few items?
I make a motion we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Motion is second to take a short recess. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in
5 minutes.
See you in 5. Okay. Stretch the legs, stretch the legs. Good job, Griffin. Yeah. Have you had time?
Got to see.
All right.
I'll make a motion to go reopen the session.
Second.
All right, motion is second to go back into open session. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are back in session. Next, we are going to spend some time discussing the beach safety recommendations from the Beach Safety Committee. So Kate's up, and I think there was a group of recommendations. Thought process at this point would be to hear what they are. Obviously, we're looking for some guidance from this group as far as what we want to do with those recommendations, and then likely, because even within these recommendations, we're going to need to further refine them, possibly create a small subgroup of this council to take those and bring them back, because I know Steve specifically said cost, and even that was, the recommendations are they're broad, so it's real difficult we'll get into that, but that's just a thought as we get going. So Kate?
That's
And then
correct.
we'll also be we'll get some additional public comment as we go.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. Yes, we plan to bring you a plan for implementation that would cover not only cost but feasibility. And as we started to dive into it, we just realized there was just too many variables for us to bring you a workable plan. So we put together a very quick slideshow for us to kind of delve into, as well as to get some feedback from the council, because that's what that's what staff is needing at this time, is some direction. Just quickly, we do just put the background in here as to how we got here tonight, which is we've been reviewing this. There was the Beach Safety Committee as well as the recommendations. The first thing that we talked about is one of the 6 recommendations that came out of the Beach Safety Committee was for a pier barrier. Now, the pier barrier was something that was contemplated by the Beach Safety that did not necessarily seem like something that completely stopped traffic from going out to the piers. But as we went down into this, we saw there were so many different types that municipalities and others were using. So the recommendation from the Beach Safety Committee was that we install a barrier with signs attached so that people entering the pier acknowledge they are entering their own risk. Now, we have a number of different types of permanent and temporary pier barriers that vary greatly in cost. As well as signage we can do. It's just that what kind of barrier is council actually foreseeing here? We also looked into the permits or license agreement that would be needed from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've started those conversations with the Corps of Engineers. We have the applications. What we do need, though, is about 6 months' time, as well as what's the actual barrier that we're going to be needing. So we're going to need to iron out some information before that goes to the Corps of Engineers. I have here 3 different types of barriers. One, as you can see, is just a simple, almost like post with this barrier there.
Swinging
Or
gate.
you've got like a gate that has been used in other places, and this is something similar to what the city has used in the past. Or you've seen bollards with chain link. All of those are something that city staff contemplated, but as we started going down the how much would it cost road, we realized there was a wide variation, so we thought to come to council and get some determination or maybe some guidance as to what council was thinking as the barrier would look like. Secondarily, as we talked about implementing fines for crossing the barrier, we did also check in with City Attorney Nick Curcio. And we can find out what that looks like. Again, we're just looking at, some standards from council. Does this mean that the pier is closed anytime there's a red flag? Is it closed seasonally? I mean, for us to draft an ordinance to bring back, we just need to know some parameters from council. So that's the first thing we wanted to talk about, was the pier barrier, of the different types that we were looking at, because that affects our costs and it affects our feasibility, because that's something we're going to apply for the Corps of Engineers. It's just a determination as to what council is envisioning. Secondly, we have the regulation and enforcement. One is to adopt an ordinance authorizing a designated official to close the beach or the water in specific situations. As we have been talking about this, ironically enough, there's been an article as well as action by the state DNR to look at how they may be closing their beaches and or enforcing the closure of those. That is a new rule that's being potentially promulgated by the DNR. So right now it's out to comment period, I think till August, sometime in August. And this is something that the city attorney is aware of, and he suggests that we pay attention to this case and how the DNR ends up, what they end up doing with their rule, and how we may or may not either build off of that or we're somewhere different. But on the city attorney's memorandum, he did note that it's important that one important consideration is whether the decision to close the beaches and/or the piers be made on a case-by-case basis by a city official, similar to the Marquette ordinance, or whether the beaches should be closed automatically when a red flag condition exists. Those are just some ideas that are being contemplated when we start to talk about whether or not an ordinance is created to close the beaches and what does that look like. And I believe also we talked about this at the Beach Safety Committee, and Councilmember Campbell brought this up, which is how do we accommodate for users of the beach that go down there when it is considered a red flag? So kiteboarders or people who use the water at certain times when they already have many of their own safety equipment, but they use it at times when most beach users do not. And how to accommodate that, that's something we would have to build into that, but that's also being contemplated by the DNR rule. Beach signage. I should note here that we have been taking an annual look at our signage to see if it's conforming, if we're making sure that we're having things in the same spot. I do want to just kind of bring up that these are some of the suggestions that came out, which is create double-sided signs, add temporary signs, utilize the red flag with the swimmer crossed out, which is already being done, move signs closer to the water and or by the parking kiosks. As you know, as the water levels came up, we've had to relocate many of those posts back and further. Some of those posts have been moved almost 4 times at this point. But then the idea is then to get them closer to the water so that people are aware of what those posts, what the flag looks like on that post, and when they are changed. The idea is also to potentially add light and sound capabilities. Those are things that we're still investigating. We know that Muskegon has added a light component that uses their city's Wi-Fi on the beaches. We're looking at our Wi-Fi capabilities on the beaches. It's not necessarily very reliable right now with the number of users at times that we can get on the beaches. So we're looking at whether or not that's a functionality that we could add on the beaches. But again, still things that we're still looking into. So beach signage is something we've added on here that we are working on. And I should note that many of these items can be addressed relatively easily. We do have our own sign shop. And it should be noted that on some of these signs, which you can see out there, we have a lot of signs. If you've been paying attention, we have a lot of signage on our beaches. There's been some talk amongst city staff, should we look at how to consolidate and or maybe getting a consultant to see how to best consolidate our signage so that it is effective, concise, and that it's not sign overload, because at some point, some people just stop reading signs because there's just too many of them. That's a concern that has been raised.
And we did just discuss it at the Parks Commission as well, to look at the amount of signage on the beaches.
Yeah.
To consolidate.
D, communication and public outreach. We have the 4 here, which is include the beach safety information in our short-term rental good neighbor guides. This is something we've already been implementing. Encourage local businesses to post the beach safety information on the storefronts. Again, something we and the Shays and the CVB have been reaching out to. We've got the QR code, which is on our website, as well as it is on the Shays' mule, if you will, so we're trying to get that word out there. So this is, as you're out there and you want to know what the beach flags are, you just point your smartphone's camera at that, and it comes up with the beach flags immediately. And, of course, our Nixle notifications, which if you're signed up to beaches to 888-777, you're notified when the beach flags are changed. That's one more way that we're trying to get that communication outreach. All these things we're doing currently. We also did have in here, as part of the recommendations, was the beach patrol. The recommendation specifically was to expand this Shays Beach Monitor program. It was a little vague coming out of the Beach Safety Committee, so we turned that over to Shays to see what they would suggest. We have here on a very consolidated chart here what they currently do. So they have a beach monitoring program, and that covers mostly the piers and the throw bags, as well as the life rings. So those things are being done by Shays. So they change out the flags 3 times a day at 3-hour intervals, and they also check the pier life rings to make sure they're in good working order. So you have the current, what's being done currently, and that represents what has also been done in the past 10 years. And then they have like a stepped-up version, which would be roughly around $71,000. That would take them to about 1-hour intervals of updating to the Shays website, checking surf forecasts, confirming conditions in person. So you would have a stepped-up version of that. They would have the mule ready. They would have more public visibility. They would suggest more public education via pamphlets, as well as informing face-to-face. They do some of that today, but it's very little. It's just if they catch people out there and they try to talk to them. This ×2 method, or this ×2 proposal, would be more of a step up. Additionally, they would put 1 employee on one beach, on South Beach, and 1 employee on North Beach. They'd also came up with a rescue-capable plan that would have almost, I think, 16 seasonal employees plus 1 full-time employee, and that would have 2 employees per South Beach and North Beach. That would have them doing their surf forecasts and conditions in person in real time, so they would be staying on the beaches, more education, more visibility. This also contemplates the city buying a 2nd mule. It also contemplates that these folks be CPR certified, first aid certified, and can initiate water rescue should the need arise. Now that rescue capable plan comes in around $264,000, but does not include training and certifications, the purchasing of an additional mule, as well as additional liability insurance. So that'd be quite an expansion of the beach monitoring program, but this is the range of what's capable with Shays. And finally, we come to the flag system. Here we have the evaluating the flag system more often, which could be a part of the beach patrol system. We also are looking into a sound component that when the flags are changed, not only is there a notification via Nixle, but there may be a brief burst of sound that catches someone's attention who may be in the water, who may not be noticing that the flags are changed. This flag system also contemplates the elimination of the use of the double red flag. That would be something that would be modified when we come back to you with an updated beach safety plan that would be, similar to the water safety plan. It would be an amendment to the water safety plan that we currently have on our website. So those are just some ideas that we were coming up with. Most importantly, staff is needing direction on what does the pier barrier look like, what kind of things are needed for the regulation and enforcement for closing the beaches and or the piers, what criteria is being contemplated, what standards is council thinking of that you'd like to see. I mean, at this point, staff would very much like to provide an implementation plan, but we do need guidance on a few items.
Okay, sounds good. Is council game to get some public comment, and then we can decide how we want to proceed? All right, at this time, we'll take public comment. Come on up. If you'll just state your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
David Veenstra, 1220 Monroe Boulevard. Just curious, slide 10 was showing the costs of $71,000 to $264,000, something like that. And I take it that would be additional, and I'm just wondering where that funding would, what would be the source of that funding, if anyone could speak to that.
Yeah, that's
The funding would have to come either from the general fund or from funds raised from the beaches. So those are the 2 mechanisms that we would have.
Yeah. So you have to look at beach parking fund and general.
We'd have to build it into the budget.
Yeah, that's currently not accounted for.
That's correct.
Good question. Anybody else? Oh,
Danielle Veenstra, 1220 Monroe Boulevard. The mention of the kite boarders and I forget what the other category is that has concerns. Surfers. I got to say, I love sitting and watching that activity, and I think it's a draw probably in some manner for people to come here for that activity. wondering about maybe they either take some kind of training, be it online, get a permit that's either on their car or whatever, that allows them access to the beach on those days when, for a normal swimmer who's not trained, it's dangerous. But I know that, I've watched them, and it is a thing of beauty and excitement, and I'm sure that's got to be thrilling, and if I weren't quite as old as I am, I might try it. But, and then I think that the idea of when the flags are changed, using an air horn or something to make people go, oh, what's going on? Simple, to me, that's an awful lot cheaper than some of the other options. One more unrelated thing with the Good Neighbor guides, is golf cart information in those? Just a question, because I stopped a golf cart the other day full of lovely ladies all wearing the same pink shirt for their party. None of them with seatbelts, and I said, whoa, get the seatbelts on, you're going to get ticketed. They had no idea. Oh, we rented the golf cart. Don't the golf cart renters tell them the rules? So anyways.
Good questions. Thank you. Cam.
Good evening, Cam Doherty, and I live at 522 Edgell Street. And as a reminder, I was on the South Haven Beach Safety Committee and remain steadfast in my dedication to improving beach and pier safety in South Haven. The 4 drowning deaths in 14 months is not only unacceptable for South Haven, but absolutely unprecedented. And I've done the research to be able to say that factually. The prior South Haven Beach Lifeguard program spanned decades, and even with changes to the lakeshore, rising and receding water levels over the years, and changes in our tourist population, we have never before experienced tragedy on this scale. Without a doubt, trained eyes on the water and fast feet on the sand are what made the difference. And I have the information to back that up if anybody's interested. As you consider the recommendations that were put forth by the Beach Safety Committee, I ask that you also consider the comprehensive lifeguard program proposal that was drafted by former South Haven Lifeguard Director Sean Russell and myself. I submitted that to each of you on July 5th via email, but I'm happy to send it out again if you'd like. Given the very new information on what the Beach Patrol program would actually encompass, now is a fantastic time to bump that up against the lifeguard proposal that was submitted, including down to costs. In short, our proposal would address beach and pier safety from education through enforcement all the way down to the less likely event of a rescue, and would do so for less than $200,000 annually. In fact, estimated startup of the program conservatively would be around $210,000 inclusive of equipment, staffing, and training. That is a small price to pay for added safety and peace of mind, and should anyone question that, I'd happily direct you to the drowning victim family members that I talk to on a regular basis. As always, I'm more than happy to discuss this proposal, any of the recommendations that were put forth tonight, potential financing routes, any of my research, and any questions that you might have at your earliest convenience. I'm only a phone call or email away, and I'm eager to help. One last thing, I feel like I need to apologize as a member of the committee. As I sat through this slideshow on beach safety recommendations, it really feels like we have not moved far off the starting block. And given that we are already halfway through July, that just seems like a very big missed opportunity. And honestly, by the grace of God, we haven't experienced a tragedy yet. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at any time. I've done a lot of research over the last 2 years, and I'm happy to share any of that. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Cam.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask her a simple question?
Yeah.
And I'm neither for or against it. I have no idea what the best solution is, so I don't have a hidden agenda on this. But here's my simple question is, everywhere I go, and I'm sure it's true of all of us, there's not enough people to work anymore. For whatever reason, I don't understand. I've heard all the theories. We can't fill our restaurants with employees. We can't fill my doctor's office. They canceled an appointment because they don't have someone to man a desk. So my simple question is this. Do you think, and it's not trying to lean either way, do you think we could hire enough people to even man the beaches under today's current environment?
Yes, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, from my perspective, this is a unique opportunity to act as a feeder program to the greater first responder organizations in South Haven. So we could, in theory, eventually work with, say, the VOTEC Center and have a trained lifeguard certification program through VOTEC that would be a first step maybe into getting into Shays in the not-so-distant future. So for me, we're developing a talent pipeline there. And I think that that would be ideal, not just for the lifeguard program and beach safety in general, but for Shays as well. Because from my perspective, this is something that could roll up to Shays. I also know that we've recently hired some new interns at Shays, and it didn't seem like that was an issue getting those spots filled. But again, I wouldn't specifically know on that. I just know that we got those spots filled. And then the last thing I would say about that is we are in regular discussions, Sean and myself and the South Haven Life Forum are in regular discussions with our varsity swim programs who are hungry to offer these opportunities to this next generation of young adults who could be the first in the pipeline. Again, you know, everybody likes to say, well, you don't want to put kids on the beach in these situations. I'm saying that there's some opportunity there, and that could be a feeder program as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, Kim. Any other public questions or comments? Good evening, Tom Renner.
Hi, I'm Tom Renner, 826 South Haven Place, and I'm not here as a counterpoint to Cam. But I think we have done a lot this summer already. I'm a strong advocate of education and communication and making the public aware of the beach hazards. The texting system that Kate and her staff have put into place, I mean, there's not another municipal beach on the shore that is doing the extent to that. The QR code, the printed materials, true, they don't replace the lifeguards as Cam is advocating, but I do think that a lot has come out of the Beach Safety Committee's work and in motivating all of us to do more in messaging as to the dangers of our Lake Michigan beaches. One element of this, and I'm speaking as Tom Renner because I don't want to get in trouble that you think I'm speaking for Shays, but I personally don't think that having Shays manage a lifeguard program is in the best interest of the community in the long term. I mean, Shays is a area authority of which the city is a member. The city south and north beaches, which are the primary beaches the lifeguard advocates have been promoting, represent about 10% of the shoreline that Shays is responsible for. I would think that before any steps could be taken, the Shays board really needs to very seriously consider. I mean, this is a contract that they have separate from the agreement of what Shays provides for the city and the townships. And, you know, I look at the number of calls that Shays has right now. I mean, they're about 300 ahead of a year ago. They're going to hit probably 2,500 responses for fire, accident, heart attacks. Now, to put this, what I would view of going to the full lifeguard thing, a burden on Shays is something I think you should realistically weigh. And that's putting aside whether we should have lifeguards or not. Where is the best management of that? Also, several of us have taken on the responsibility of the task of the education and communication. You know, I think if you like the scheme, then in the long term, again, you need to look who from the city is going to be responsible, you know, for the continuum of that. This isn't a one-year deal. This is the beginning of a program to educate our visitors and our community to the dangers of Lake Michigan. I really enjoyed working on the Beach Safety Committee. What's kind of lost in all the motions that were made is I made a motion that we present this to you for your consideration rather than asking you to act on it. as proposed, and that was defeated, and then they passed another motion to have you immediately consider it. But I would say let's slow down a little bit. I know Kate's eager. We're halfway through the summer. Thank God we have not had one water rescue emergency, knock on wood, yet this summer. But let's really put together, if you're going to go these major steps to a lifeguard kind of program, do it methodically and carefully in the best interest of the community. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Tom, and thanks for being on the committee. Cam, too. I said that. Any other public questions? Nothing. Council. So I would suggest we work kind of top down and see if there's an interest. And then we don't have to hash all this tonight. If there's an interest, we could create a small subgroup of this group to maybe refine it a little bit more. Because I think, as we heard from Kate, there are, a bunch of different barriers for what might be reasonable to bring back to this group, so we don't have to, we can spend a little bit of time here tonight, but we just work down the list. I don't know if Kate just wants to start at the top, and we can say barrier. I mean, are we
That might be helpful, sir.
on board? I mean, if it's time to have a quick discussion. Are we interested in hearing more about it? Vehemently opposed? Shall we start with a peer barrier? That's first on my list.
So you do want to have this discussion right now?
Part of it, I guess the question is, because if we're going to break this down, we have to decide if there's no interest, there's no need to have a subgroup talk about it.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
if there's a discussion, does this group want to see further information on a peer barrier, pros, cons, ups, downs?
I just was thinking that some great work by the Beach Safety Committee, but it sounds like we need to flesh out different things, like which is the best barrier for us? What are other people using? The notion about the city manager should be able to close the beaches, whether it be because of dangerous swimming or E. coli or like the ruckus we had on North Beach. I didn't know we couldn't do that already, so it sounds like we need to get that verbiage together. So I think we need a committee, or we need,
Right.
or we're going to be here quite a while to
Yeah,
flesh all that
exactly.
out.
We'd be here a long time tonight.
So
So I think the question tonight is, if we just took the suggestions that were made, is they're interested in getting more information. And one of them I think should be easy because we're going to wait for the DNR. But the first one is the peer barrier. Is there,
Well, to me, if it's $500,000, I'll probably vote against it.
I would tend to agree. So,
My biggest concern with the barrier is the responsibility when you close it, and then what liability that brings to me. And I understand we had the attorney review, and we got that, but some of it's still kind of
And-
unclear to me.
I would agree, and we get very specific. Like, okay, well, here comes your barrier, because I know Kate said, well, there's two types. There's the 2-inch variety that you can just step across, and I'm like, well, that's for me kind of, and I'm joking, but I'm just saying, there's the one that's go ahead and pass by, and we warned you. So I mean, we'd have to flesh out how much of a barrier is it, what's our true liability, and then bring it back. And maybe with that additional information, we can thumb up or thumb down.
Yeah.
I think we've all seen days when we've seen the parent with a stroller on, waves going over the top, and we're all shaking our heads going,
Yeah.
really? And, we'd all love to be able to say, no, how do we stop this? So I think the majority of the community would agree. Please help these people to figure out when they shouldn't be out there. Because, if you've ever been to Grand Haven's pier, very different than our pier. Quite a bit taller. It's smooth, it's been repaved. It's a very different structure than ours. So, I would agree. So if there's interest, we can do more work on a peer barrier. Appears to be some further.
I think we should look at it, obviously.
Okay, so
I'm in favor of a peer barrier.
So, more work. We'll add that one. Yeah, Joe?
I just have a simple question. Of all the drownings, do we have any idea what percentage of those drownings were from people swimming in the water and got in trouble and drowned versus how many people were on the pier, either got knocked off, jumped off, or somehow got in trouble, and from the pier drowned? That could be eye-opening if we knew the difference. Hypothetically, if 95% were from getting knocked off the pier or jumping off the pier or getting blown off the pier, then close the pier in bad weather. That's a simple decision. But if half and half are from people drowning, then I don't know if that fixes the problem. So right now, sitting here, I don't have enough information, and I still feel ignorant on this subject that I couldn't make an intelligent decision.
Joe, to answer your question, Ms. Doherty's done her homework, and she's indicating that 0 people have died.
Recently, since the cessation of the lifeguard program, there have been 0 who have been swept off the pier and died. We did have one.
There was one
I
in
want to say
Holland.
it was like 2002, maybe, around 4th of July celebration, and it was in the evening after the fireworks, somebody jumped off the pier and they got caught in the rocks and drowned.
But the majority of rescues have been from the pier.
Yes, I would say, yes, rescues. Any of the other distress calls that we've had that have happened in the lake have resulted in drowning deaths, so.
So I guess the question is, we're trying to prevent things, could a barrier help prevent? So there's enough interest, we'll go on. Item 2, regulation enforcement. So the DNR has this in front of them, and I would argue, let's give them a month or two. We can have a brief discussion, but I mean, if they're willing to
Do the heavy lifting.
take it on, and they're doing a fair amount of public hearings, I say we wait, we'll bring back the updates from the DNR.
I would agree, but I also think we probably need to think about it because there might be, like, we had that altercation on the North Beach several years ago, or E. coli. There's times we probably need to close the beach anyway.
Yep.
So we probably need to get that language in our, together.
So agreement, we would
So, yeah, sorry.
keep it on with some oversight, we'll keep posted on the DNR as well.
Right, we'll have to watch and see how this one goes. Obviously, this is a promulgated rule, so they're looking at they're taking public comment on this, and they're hoping to have something by, I'm guessing, mid-August. But again, they're looking at, their authority goes to the water's edge, and they would be ticketing people as they come out for violating, for entering the water illegally. Here, we have similar situations. Also, the city attorney, through the Beach Safety Committee, kind of contemplated that through the health and safety aspects, we may be able to go into the water to a limited means. So I guess there's some contemplation on city, from city staff to council. How far do you want us to take the ability to ticket and enforce that? Do you want to take it to the water's edge? How far do you want to go in? And some of this would be, some of this would be for city staff to monitor the new DNR promulgated rule or the potential rule, or we can bring that back as we see how things are going.
Yeah, I guess I would argue, I would wait and see how things are going personally, but.
Okay.
But it
But
doesn't.
we're saying we definitely want to keep that around.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Continue to explore.
I
Okay.
think we want to, I think to have the ability to find somebody for entering the water and what are the rules, absolutely. Agreed, move on. Beach signage, I think this was pretty straight ahead. And
This
we're
is-
doing some of this.
I guess on signage, I guess what I'm looking for is, there seems to be a conversation happening that we have maybe too many signs or some of our signage is redundant. Is there any willingness, or does council want to see us to look and maybe engage with a consultant to help us, one, make sure that the messaging is, one, consistent, concise, and that we don't have an overabundance of signs, because there seems to be a sign just kind of exploding out of every place. And even though we can consolidate them, then you are looking at a massive block of signs. So it sounds like the Parks Commission is also looking at some of this, that there is some kind of willingness to make sure this kind of gets retracted, to make sure that the information is, one, the information we need to impart, but that it's done concisely and with as little signage as possible that meets our needs.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think we've talked, that we mentioned Grand Haven, St. Joe, maybe look at some standardization amongst other lakeshore communities. I've talked to Reps Whiteford and Griffin, and they were interested in maybe making some contacts with the DNR to even look at standardization statewide. Wouldn't that be a concept? So that when you go to a state lake, it looks and feels the same, so that it could be more than just our little effort. So we could, as part of this, we could push that up.
I should also mention, there's a push from other lakeshore communities. We've been in contact with them. We will be meeting with them later this fall The idea is to make this almost an annual event, meeting with our counterparts on the Lake Shore to see what are they doing, what are we doing, seeing if there's best practices or common things that we can all kind of either adopt, as well as starting those conversations with the state to see that there is, to ensure that there is a common signage or common messaging. I think, as we talked about this, Mayor, it seems to be beneficial for all operating from the same playbook, and that there's consistent messaging no matter where you go. I think that there's been some bills that have been started around the state, either talking about having beach safety plans either on websites or what that looks like from standardization, but so far nothing's necessarily lifted off the ground, but conversations are starting around the state.
Also, lights and sound capacities. I read and I was listening to the somebody from the DNR looking at adding that to their system as well. That might be something we're waiting from DNR to kind of do exactly the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, I like light and sound personally. So group's kind of in agreement. I mean, standardized signage, light, sound, if it makes sense. That takes us to communication, public outreach, which I think Tom mentioned. I think we're doing a great job with that. Kate, you've mentioned that as well. So I don't think there's, I mean, short of continuing to do what we're doing, that's pretty straight ahead. Thoughts? I mean, we're doing a good job. Keep doing it. Beach patrol.
Once I saw pricing, I was less in favor of it. I think keeping track of the flags and where they should be is a big deal. But I think that expanded Shays beach monitoring program seems a little bit more than what we need. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I'd be curious about other seasonal options and just what our options would be. So I guess we could talk further, but as presented, I'm not too keen on what was proposed.
I'm willing to put that down a little bit lower in the priority from the other stuff.
Sort of bring additional suggestions or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, just do it down. Which takes us to a flag system. And really, we've already removed the double red flag, and we're looking at, again, possibly a sound component, and then obviously Chris just mentioned evaluating the flag status more often.
So if I'm hearing correctly, I think then really staff's, I guess, main concern is on the pier barrier. Does council foresee the barrier as being prohibiting traffic or allowing traffic with acknowledgement that there is risk here, but they're going beyond it, acknowledging the risk? Or is the pier barrier meant to stop pedestrian traffic at certain times?
What does Nick say?
Right, that's what
and that's a conversation that needs to happen with the city attorney and council, understanding what is the city council taking on by taking a pier barrier and taking it to getting permission to put this up and acknowledging that you're taking on this new duty of care.
I think we need that before we give you our final answer.
Fair enough. So I will work with the city attorney to get more information, and we will come back to you with more updates on the liability portion, because it feels like that seems to be some of the information that is lacking for council to make a determination at this time.
I would just suggest a 6-month deal so that this is ready to go by Memorial Day of next year for any barrier. If everybody's kind of leaning towards a barrier, that we apply for that
Fair enough.
so that it's ready.
Yeah.
All right.
Good point. Okay. Got enough information?
I think so.
Okay, perfect. Next, any other group comments before we roll? Nope. All right, we are going to get an update from Miss Natalie Thompson. Good evening, Chief. Thanks for sticking around.
Okay, so I'm going to start by giving an update from the July 4th weekend. For the directed patrol areas, officers issued 6 civil infraction citations. We had 3 traffic-related arrests that included OWIs. In addition, we issued 23 citations for golf cart violations, I can tell you the majority of those were for occupants not properly wearing seatbelts or wearing seatbelts at all. In addition to the traffic enforcement, the department responded to 6 traffic crashes for involved passenger vehicles, one with a moped, which was a single vehicle accident, and we had 1 car versus pedestrian that happened in a store parking lot. We investigated 2 domestic assaults, 2 fights, 2 retail frauds. We investigated 1 DOA, which is a person who is deceased upon our arrival, and had several general assistance complaints. Those involved assisting CPS and mental health. On Friday night, I worked late to help the road patrol. Sergeant Hathaway and I were able to locate a kidnapping suspect in the parking lot of our Meyer. The Michigan State Police had put out information regarding a 2-month-old whom was kidnapped from her mother after she had been severely beaten. This original incident happened on the east side of the county. Law enforcement information, be on the lookout, went out. Sergeant Hathaway actually located the suspect vehicle in a very crowded Meyer parking lot here in South Haven, just as the suspect was transferring the infant into a different vehicle that was packed full of luggage and knows where they were going to go. So Sergeant Hathaway did a really good job. We arrested the suspect, and the infant was returned safely and injured to her mother. So kudos to Sergeant Hathaway on that. Golf cart reminders. Just a reminder that any golf cart ticket, they are all paid at City Hall, not the 7th District Court West. We have made large stickers to put at the bottom of the citation with City Hall information that we will adhere to the citation itself that is issued, just to have that more readily visible and clear to someone receiving the citation. What officers are doing now is the tickets are pre-printed with the court information, so they'll cross it off and put City Hall, and just sometimes through the layers that's not readily visible. So we actually have some stickers that hopefully will help let people know where to properly pay those. I've had a lot of questions. I know some of you have had the same, but headlights or headlamps are not required on golf carts. So all of the new safety provisions that were included in the amendment, headlights or headlamps are not required. So we had a lot of questions about those. And also golf cart inspections, those are conducted anytime, 24/7. Individuals can either contact dispatch and request an officer to their specific location, or the golf cart may be registered right at the police department. So just a reminder to that. We do those Monday through Friday, Sunday, Saturday, 24/7 at any time. So next, the Information Center update. We've been interviewing candidates for our vacant 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. position. We actually finished up interviews, and we'll be notifying the new hire probably late next week. So we didn't have a lot of applicants, but we had some really high-quality people we interviewed. And then homicide update. So a week ago Thursday, we had a homicide that occurred in the city. We had 3 officers working who responded initially before we had extra assistance, and they did a phenomenal job. I responded shortly thereafter, and each of us were doing about 10 jobs apiece. We had great help from outside agencies, and fortunately, within 5 hours, we located one of the persons of interest, and by the next morning, in less than 24 hours, we had a suspect identified, and we were able to obtain a 5-count open murder warrant on that individual. So we have been working since that time. We have state and federal resources helping us. We are getting information, and every tip that we get, or that the other entities helping us get, is being followed upon as we speak. So I can tell you it solved. We know who the person responsible was, so right now we are actively looking for that person. And some of the specifics about this, I really, the integrity of the case is most important, and I know a lot of people have questions. So as I'm able to talk more or release information, I'll do that. Right now, this case is in the hands of the prosecutor, so we are very careful with what we release because we want a successful prosecution. So, but that's an update so far on that.
Very good. Any questions? It's very quiet. Thanks for taking bad people off the street. All right, very good. Next, citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. And if anybody has anything to say, come on up, state your name and address. And you'll have 5 minutes.
Lisa Beck, 879 Monroe Boulevard. I was hit by what you said earlier about a study for how many of the houses are full-time and how many are, summer rentals. And one of the things that struck me is it would be great to have a study on how many houses are on the market that are affordable for people to buy. I am was an owner, and Friday I won't be, but of 2 rentals, not summer rentals, but full-time renters. And the first woman moved to Detroit back with her son. She couldn't buy a house here, and she had been renting from me for, I think it was 7 years. She just wanted to buy a home, and she couldn't. We had 2 in a duplex that we just sold, and both gentlemen, one has a son, and he had to move out of South Haven because he could not find any place that he could buy. He wanted to buy something. The other one moved to Covert and rented an apartment in the hopes of buying a house there because he couldn't find anything in South Haven to buy. We talked about the Overton property, and initially the idea had been for this missing middle. And I still feel that that would be an excellent use for that property. We mentioned earlier about 879 St. Joseph being redistricted to single families because it fit in the neighborhood was the quote. Single-family dwellings that people could buy and live in full-time would fit on the Overton property, I believe, excellent. There's just, I was lucky that I got to buy a house here, I think it was first 28 years ago. I could afford it. I couldn't afford any place else. And so I understand that feeling completely. And I still live here because I bought the house a long time ago and could afford it. I think that that's something that we should really think about, at least including somewhere part of the parcel, not apartment buildings for people to rent and to sublet and to have no jobs if there aren't jobs here, but people who want to live here, start a business, as you mentioned, the industrial park, start a business. They need a place to live and they need hope. They need to be able to buy something and have it be theirs, is my feeling on that. I also wanted to mention something else about you had sent out email, Joe, I think, to people who were just for the project as it is. And you're our ward representative, and I felt like the email was very biased, and I believe part of it said, if you're for the project, come and speak out. I think everyone in the community should have a right. I know there was a flyer that was printed and given. It was given to everyone, trying to get input from the entire community, not just the side you might be on. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. All righty. City manager comments. Kate.
Well, thank you, Mayor. First off, I do want to thank everyone for all the comments received. These have been very instructional for city staff to help keep going down the path to fully refine our beach safety recommendations to get to a plan that we can implement, obviously in time for next year. So I thank you for the council and anybody else who spoke to help us fully refine that. I also do want to thank the South Haven Police Department and Chief Thompson for her work last week. I know when we had the homicide last week, that was a pretty stressful week, pretty stressful event. So I appreciate all the staff's time and getting that done. That was a pretty traumatic event for everybody involved, and I just hope that we've got people coming in to help check in and see how that went. Also, I do want to thank a couple of the local ministers who stopped by during that event to kind of help. It was a very traumatic event for the family who lost a member that day, and they kind of stopped by and kind of helped some of the family members who were dealing with grief at that time. So I do want to thank Pastor Bobby Walker and Pastor Darrell Williams for their help that day. It really did help out. So with that, those are my comments, and thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Any questions for Kate? Nope. All right. Council, we're almost done. To my left.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
We're tired. I like it.
No comment.
Uh-oh.
No comment.
Ooh, I better shut up. Okay, I'm just gonna say, good job on economic development. That's it. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks all.